Hello, I'm sure you recall the US presidential election 2 years ago where it was argued that Trump should remain in office to deal with China. It was believed that if Biden were elected, he wouldn't be able to do anything and China would become the world's hegemon. However, recently, Biden has dealt a severe blow to China, far more than what Trump had done. This turn of events has caused many to rethink their opinions about Biden. So, what has Biden done to shake China? Let's find out. Imagine that your village is in fierce competition with a neighboring village, and it could lead to war. Have you ever thought about selling modern weapons to the neighboring village to make a lot of money? Of course not, only a fool would do that, because later the neighboring village will use those weapons to defeat your village. However, if you don't sell weapons but instead sell technology, components, and machinery to the neighboring village so that they can produce weapons capable of defeating your village, should you do it? The answer is no. But if it has already happened, then you must prevent it, and that is the situation that the United States is facing. Recently, we have seen that China has developed at an alarming pace. They have the highest economic growth rate in the world. They have companies that are competing head-to-head with the giants of the US such as Xiaomi with Apple, TikTok with Facebook and YouTube. But that's not all. China has also made significant advances in military, aerospace, and energy. They even have their own artificial sun. And these rapid changes have led the US to believe that they are a threat to US national security. And we also understand why the US has taken action to prevent these things as early as possible. But how is the US doing it? The answer lies in the microprocessor chips. Chips are the most important component for China's supercomputers to operate, serving research in nuclear, aerospace, and daily life applications such as artificial intelligence, self-driving cars, and big data. Supercomputers are essential devices for large-scale and complex computations, and are an important thing to reflect a country's strategic capabilities in the field of computing. To develop supercomputers and other advanced intelligent devices, what China needs are high-performance chips. The US currently holds the technologies and machinery to produce these high-performance chips. Next are their allies such as Japan and the Netherlands, countries that have participated in the agreement with the US to limit China's advances in the chip industry. Therefore, the US has the ability to prevent China from buying, or even more, producing these high-performance chips, thereby preventing China's ability to surpass the US in the computer industry, and further applying it to the Chinese military. The US has taken specific actions to achieve its goals as follows. In August 2022, the US added 7 entities, research institutes of the China Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation, the China Academy of Space Technology, and Chinese Electronics Corporation to the blacklist, according to the US Commerce Secretary. These entities had purchased equipment from the US to modernize the Chinese military. Therefore, all US companies will be banned from selling equipment or providing services to these entities, except in certain licensed cases. Next, in October, the US took another action that has been described as a heavy blow to China since President Biden took office. Specifically, the US issued sanctions on semiconductors including, first, limiting US companies from exporting critical chip production tools to China, and restricting US citizens and companies from providing any form of support to semiconductor manufacturing plants in China. Some American experts in China have been asked to suspend their work and face 2 options, either lose their jobs or renounce their US citizenship. Second, foreign governments are also prohibited from selling or supporting chip production for China. A Dutch chip company reported that their employees in the US were asked to stop cooperating with China. Third, China's supercomputers and data centers will be strictly restricted from export. Fourth, the US tightly controlled the production of China's 14, 16, and 28 nanometer chips. However, the issue is that when the US ban is violated, as in the recent case of the Chinese chip company, IMTC, which is believed to have violated US export restrictions by supplying NAND memory chips used in smartphones to the telecommunications company Huawei. The US is considering adding this company to the blacklist, meaning it will no longer be able to trade with US companies. Faced with this situation, China has filed a lawsuit against the US to the World Trade Organization, WTO. China's Ministry of Commerce accuses the US of abusing export restrictions and obstructing normal international trade in chips and other products. The WTO lawsuit is seen as a legal way to address China's concerns. However, the answer to the outcome of this lawsuit is difficult to predict. Previously, President Trump imposed tariffs on China's steel and aluminum products, and China sued the WTO and won. That could happen again. However, each WTO lawsuit typically takes several years to resolve, and by then, even if they win the case, China will have suffered considerable damage. Moreover, the WTO also has provisions in its rules that allow countries to impose restrictions for their own security interests. Currently, chip companies are planning to move out of China, and potential countries could be Vietnam or India. Thank you for watching the video. Please leave your comments and subscribe now to never miss a video, and let's learn together. See you again.